I'd been through some low moments in my life, but nothing made my stomach flip the way that mic feedback did when my mother leaned into it, looked right at the crowd, and said I wasn't worth mentioning. I'm Patrick Hale. I'm 58 now, but this happened when I was 33, and I still remember the crackle of that speaker more than the words themselves. Quick note before we jump in. What city or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and let's continue. The Renford Civic Hall was packed. 80, maybe 90 people crammed into those white plastic chairs, half of them county staff, the other half just locals who liked free food and a story. I came in wearing a collared shirt, not because I thought she'd thank me, but because a dumb part of me still wanted to believe she might. Lenora Hale, Queen of Public Works, was up front holding court like the banquet was her personal coronation. She had that tight, fixed smile she used in newspaper photos, standing under the county seal like she owned it. She was reading from a folder, not a speech, more like a catalog of people she wanted credit from. She called out Clyde the copier tech for always keeping things running, gave Runa the night guard a whole sentence about loyalty, and poured praise all over my sister Tamsin like it was syrup. The backbone of our project scheduling, she said. I was halfway through chewing a dry chicken breast when someone in the back called out, loud and clean, "What about Patrick?" Like it was just an innocent reminder, not a setup, just a question. My mother didn't flinch. She laughed into the microphone, this sharp practice sound, and said, "He isn't worth mentioning." No one gasped. That would have required someone caring at all. Instead, there was this hush, like a room holding its breath. I looked across the table at my dad, and he was staring into his plate like it might show him a way out of the moment. That line broke something in me, not because it was new, but because it was public. All the quiet dismissals over the years, all the shoulder shrugs and credit she handed to Tamsin like it was a party favor. This was just the first time she said it where people could hear. I stood up, calm as I've ever been, walked straight to the podium and placed a plain manila folder right beside her plaques and her water glass. Not slammed, just placed. Verity Sloan, the county administrator, grabbed it first, opened it right there, and the moment she flipped that cover, the applause stopped. The photos on the projector paused, and the whole night twisted from celebration to confrontation. I didn't expect applause when Verity flipped open that folder. I expected denial, maybe a half lie or some excuse about confusion in the files. But that silence, dead and sharp, that was the sound of the truth breaking through years of the Hale family PR script. And that script started in our house. Bryer County was the kind of place where folks learned your last name before they asked what you did. And Hale didn't mean me. It meant Lenora, public works legend, ironed blouse, sensible heels, holding scissors at every ribbon cutting like she was slicing through red tape with her bare hands. At home, she ran the family like a meeting agenda. No yelling, no mess, just control, thinly disguised as order. She kept a calendar in the hallway with everyone's names on it, and if your box didn't have an entry, you didn't matter that week. My dad, Gideon, was quieter. He worked county land inspections and quoted regulations like bedtime stories. But when it came to family, his main rule was, don't stir it up. I heard that line so many times it stopped sounding like advice and started sounding like surrender. Then there was Tamsin, my older sister, the chosen one, the county's smiling darling. She could bring home a dented science fair ribbon and it'd get framed. She'd flunk a math quiz and somehow it turned into a story about how hard she was working. Me, I was the one who remembered deadlines, organized binders, highlighted study guides. I liked the rules, not because I was uptight, I just thought they were fair. If you did the work, you got the credit. Simple. One winter, I came home with a scholarship letter from the state university. Full ride, civil engineering. I waited until dinner was quiet, then slid the envelope across the table. Lenora didn't even glance at it. She said, "That's nice," while serving herself another spoon of green beans, then turned to Tamsin and asked about a dance coming up. I stared at Gideon, waiting for backup, and all he gave me was that exhausted look, the one that said, "Why can't you just let it go?" He cleared his throat and started asking about weather delays and the road crews like the whole moment hadn't happened. I stopped trying after that. Not because I didn't care, I cared too much. That was the problem, but I learned early. In our house, praise was a currency, and Lenora controlled the bank. If something good happened to me, it got ignored, misplaced, or reworded until it belonged to someone else. But if Tamsin got her driver's permit, We had a cake. By the time I packed up for school, I wasn't chasing applause. I was chasing proof, receipts, records, hard files with my name spelled correctly. Because in our house, memories got rewritten, but paper didn't. I loaded that scholarship letter in a file box with my name printed in block letters across the lid, and I took it with me. That file box with my name on it sat under my dorm bed, like a fire extinguisher, never opened, but always there. I went to the State Polytechnic program for civil and structural, worked food service shifts, did tutoring on the side, even walked dogs for faculty just to stay in housing over breaks. I didn't party, I didn't join clubs, I didn't have the luxury. I was the one who stayed up double-checking formulas and formatting lab reports to match spec, because I couldn't afford a mistake. If I messed up, there was nobody waiting to spin it into a funny story at dinner. It'd just be my name, attached to failure. By the time I graduated, I had no friends to pose with in a cap and gown. I had a job lined up in Ridgelow, mid-size firm, state contracts, decent benefits, and that was all I needed. That's where I met Colette Vance. She was the head of the infrastructure unit, late 40s, sharp-eyed, with zero interest in small talk. On my first day, she handed me a used binder full of project forms and said, "Rule 1, save everything. Every revision, every email, every sign-off. You'll thank me later." And she was right. I wasn't the fastest or the most charismatic on the team, but I got known quick for catching things before they got expensive. I ran back calculations even when I wasn't asked. I flagged discrepancies in drawings before they left our floor. It wasn't perfectionism, it was defense. I passed my licensing exam at 26, youngest on my floor, and for some reason I picked up the phone and called home, thinking maybe this time would be different. Lenora answered. I told her I'd passed, that it was official now, stamp and all. She said, "Are you moving back soon?" Like the past 4 years had been a side errand. Then she pivoted to how Tamsin just got appointed to a new title in the county office. I hung up and stared at the wall for a full minute. That was the last time I shared anything good with them. Instead, I started building a wall of files, one drawer in my apartment just for backup documentation. Not because I thought I'd need it, but because I'd lived too long in a house where stories changed depending on who was in the room. Colette noticed. She pulled me onto bigger projects, bridges, municipal culverts, water barriers, things where the margin of error was inches, not feet, and where a missing sign-off could kill someone down the line. "People respect what's written," she said once, flipping through one of my folders, "but only if you can prove who wrote it." By the time I was 30, folks in the office started calling me the documents guy. And I didn't correct them. I leaned in because paper trails don't argue back, and about 4 years before that banquet, one landed right in my lap with my hometown stamped across the header. Broward County announced the Renford Spur overpass replacement like it was the biggest event the county had seen in years. It was the only direct road from the north side to the clinic and the high school, and every parent in town used it twice a day. The press releases made it sound heroic. Lenora's department pushed out staged photos of her in a hard hat, hand flat on a roll of plans, smiling like she personally poured the concrete. When the first design package hit our office for outside review, I saw problems in the first hour. The load assumptions didn't match updated traffic counts. Some soil data was outdated. A few reinforcement details looked copied from an older template that didn't fit the site reality. It wasn't dramatic failure stuff, but it would age badly, crack early, cost the county down the line. Verity Sloan ordered the external review, and my firm won the contract. When Colette walked into my office and said, "It's Broward County," my stomach dropped so hard, I thought I might actually be sick. She watched my face and said, "You can recuse yourself if you need to." I shook my head. A bridge doesn't care about family politics. So I took it. I did the full review myself. I recalculated loads, adjusted reinforcement specs, corrected the drainage detail that would have trapped water along the abutment. I wrote clean revision notes, attached sealed drawings, and sent a formal transmittal to the county and the contractor. My stamp and license number were on every corrected sheet, clear and permanent. 3 days later, Lenora called. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't mention safety. She said, "You will not make me look incompetent. Your name stays off this." "My name is on stamped engineering drawings," I said. "That's not optional." She lowered her voice like that made it reasonable. "We handled this internally. There's no need to confuse the public. Confuse the public." That's what she called documentation. A week after that, I checked the state-facing certification copy out of habit. That's when my hands went cold. The engineering certification line had been updated, and Tamsin's name was typed where mine had been. Under it sat a license number that wasn't hers. I drove down on a Saturday and asked Lenora to meet me at her office. No yelling, no scene, just us in that beige conference room with the county seal on the wall. "That's not her license," I said, sliding the printout across the table. Lenora didn't deny it. She leaned back and folded her hands. "The county needed continuity, and your sister needs experience. She isn't licensed. She will be." Gideon showed up before I left. He stood by the door and said, "Patrick, your mother is under pressure. Let it go." I looked at both of them, felt that old rule pressed down on my shoulders, and for a second, I almost gave in. Instead, I went home, opened my desk drawer, and made duplicate copies of every single file. I made those copies and told myself I was overreacting. The overpass opened on schedule, the traffic flowed, and the county newsletter ran a write-up titled, "Internal Excellence Delivers on Renford Spur." My firm wasn't mentioned. I wasn't mentioned, not even a line about third-party review. I tried to let it go, told myself it wasn't worth burning down what peace I had. I had my license, my job, my life in Ridgelow, but silence has a shelf life. It starts to rot. What kept clawing at me wasn't the erasure, it was the license line. My stamp got pulled off a state record, and someone, my own sister, signed where she had no right to. So, I did what I always do. I opened a spreadsheet and started logging every project Lenora's department touched. I filed public records requests under FOIA, some as a citizen, some through the firm, and waited. That's the part no one warns you about, the waiting, checking your inbox every day like it might contain a confession. The first FOIA batch came about 6 weeks later. Emails, memos, approval forms, stuff that wasn't supposed to look suspicious but did if you read between the lines. Subject lines like, "Cleaning up final files" and "Let's make this internal." A lot of outside names, ours included, got scrubbed off progress updates. I told myself maybe it was sloppy admin work, maybe nothing sinister. Then the second batch came, different project, smaller. A culvert rehab, just west of Route 12. There it was again, Tamsin's name, typed under engineer of record. Same formatting, same ghost license number. That's when the denial cracked. I brought the printouts to Colette one afternoon and laid them out on her desk. She didn't ask for a speech. She looked through 3 pages, flipped the rest, and said, "Is that a pattern or a one-off?" "I don't know yet," I told her. "But it's not random." She didn't give me advice. She gave me a single question. "If something fails, whose name will be on the page?" I knew the answer before she finished asking. Mine. So I started building a folder. Not a dramatic one, just a plain manila file labeled in block letters. Inside, project logs, board minutes, license verification screenshots, FOIA return indexes, and every signature line where something didn't line up. I backed it up twice, once on a flash drive, once on a cloud account only I had access to. I still hoped I'd never need it, that maybe they'd stop. Maybe it had already stopped. Then I got the envelope. It was cream-colored, thick paper, addressed in my mother's handwriting. Inside was an invitation to Lenora's retirement banquet at the Renford Civic Hall, complete with gold trim and RSVP instructions. For 1 minute, I stood at the kitchen counter like an idiot, thinking maybe she'd finally mention me. Maybe I'd hear my name out loud, from a podium, like it meant something. I circled the date on my wall calendar, started adding documents to the folder, and walked into the Renford Civic Hall that night, already knowing how it would go. I just didn't know who would flinch first. The room looked dressed up like somebody's niece was getting married. White cloth tables, folding chairs with bows, centerpieces shaped like miniature orange traffic cones, which I guess was supposed to be clever. A slideshow was playing near the stage. Photos of Lenora shaking hands, cutting ribbons, smiling next to trucks and backhoes, like she'd built the county with her bare hands. I counted them because that's what I do when I'm trying not to feel something. 42 images. 18 of them had Tamsin, not one had me. Even the family photo near the end had my shoulder cropped out, like I'd been standing 1 step too far to the right my entire life. Tamsin was up front, laughing too loud and shaking hands like she already had the director badge laminated. Gideon sat beside her looking like he hadn't slept in weeks, slumped, eyes down, like someone dragged him there. I took a seat near the side wall, kept my coat on, and waited. The applause started 5 minutes in. Lenora stepped to the podium like it was the stage she'd been rehearsing for since middle school. She gave a speech packed full of praise. Clyde from copier maintenance, Runa the night guard, 2 county board reps got full name drops. Tamsin got a glowing paragraph about carrying the mission forward. Then, from the back of the room, someone finally said my name. My mother answered with a laugh, and a dismissal so casual it might have been weather. Nobody gasped. They didn't have to. The silence that followed said everything. Forks kept moving, people looked down, and the slideshow looped again like nothing happened. That's when I stood up. I didn't shout, I didn't storm the stage, I just walked forward, straight line, no hesitation, and placed the folder on the table beside her plaques and thank you cards. Verity Sloan reached for it before Lenora could touch it. She opened it flat in front of the mic and turned to the first page without a word. She didn't perform, didn't raise her voice or pause for drama. She flipped the first page, my stamped revisions. Next, an email thread about removing consultant references. Then, state filings with Tamsin's name and a license ID that didn't match any state records. Lenora tried to snatch the folder back, voice sharp. This is a family issue. Verity didn't blink. If it touches a county project, it's not family. It's compliance. That froze the room. Lenora adjusted her blazer and pivoted. He's always been bitter. He's unstable. He's jealous of his sister. This is sad, honestly. I saw a few heads tilt. Maybe they were about to believe her, maybe not. Then Harlan DeWitt stood up. Harlan had gray hair, a reputation built on 3 decades of clean bridges, and the kind of voice that didn't need a mic. Those revisions saved that structure, he said, plain and loud. I've said that for years. It was like someone kicked out the legs of Lenora's version of the story. People turned toward him, not her. Tamsin's face went pale. Her hands were clenched around a program sheet, and I could see it trembling. Verity looked straight at her. Did you sign this document with knowledge that the license ID wasn't yours? Tamsin's mouth opened like she wanted to deny it, but instead she choked out, Mom told me to sign. That one sentence hit harder than anything I'd brought in the folder. You could feel the air change. After the program broke up, people shuffled out in tight little groups. Nobody looked me in the eye. In the hallway, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Marlise Keene, Lenora's assistant for, 20 years? She didn't say much, just leaned in and whispered. She tried to delete everything and slipped a small flash drive into my hand. Then she walked away, and I stood there in the hallway staring at that flash drive in my palm like it weighed more than it should. 48 hours later, my phone rang before 7 in the morning. It was Harlan. His voice was tight, stripped of small talk. Patrick, we've got inspection notes on the spur, hairline cracking along the south abutment, and a deformation reading that doesn't sit right. It needs a hard look. My chest went cold, but I kept my voice steady. Is it new? No, he said. There have been minor flags in the routine logs for weeks, nothing dramatic, but your folder forced us to stop brushing them off. That hit me harder than the banquet ever did. This wasn't about my name anymore. It wasn't some movie collapse with sirens and dust clouds. It was worse in a practical way, just enough concern to restrict loads, reroute school buses, and make the county answer questions fast. The kind of issue that exposes whether paperwork was clean or not. By noon, Verity issued a temporary weight limit and posted an emergency agenda item for the board. My folder wasn't gossip now. It was attached to a public safety discussion. I wasn't on site for the scramble. I stayed in Ridgelow, watched the meeting minutes update online, tracked call logs through contacts who still respected Harlan. Later that week, he met me for coffee. He didn't drink much of it. They didn't want to escalate, he said. There was pressure to label it routine. From who? I asked, even though I already knew. He held my gaze. You know? That night I plugged in Marlise's flash drive. Inside were draft press statements calling it scheduled maintenance, email threads instructing staff to stay on message, and internal notes downplaying early inspection comments. Timestamps lined up with when my revisions had been removed from public summaries. This wasn't ego. This was exposure. Verity brought in county counsel, Nolan Ketter. When lawyers enter the room, you can feel the temperature drop. They don't show up for celebrations. Colette called me into her office the next morning. She closed the door before speaking. "Stop talking to anyone without notes," she said. "Once the word unlicensed hits a state board, everyone starts protecting themselves." "I'm not looking for a fight," I told her. "You're already in one," she replied. So I prepared a formal packet, clean timeline, license verification, screenshots from the state database, FOIA returns, indexed copies from the flash drive. I labeled every exhibit clearly, attached a cover letter, and delivered it directly to Verity's office so nobody could call it rumor. That night, Gideon called. His voice sounded older than I remembered. "Son, let your mother handle it," he said. "She's trying to manage this." I didn't raise my voice. She already did. That's the problem. There was a long silence on the line, then he hung up without another word. The next morning, Verity emailed me a formal request to appear at the upcoming public meeting and answer technical questions on record. I replied with one sentence, "I'll be there." I showed up early and sat in one of those stiff plastic chairs under fluorescent lights that made everyone look a little sick. There were no cameras from big networks, no shouting, no drama, just a long table, microphones, and a digital recorder with a red light on, because records don't forget even when people try to. Verity opened the meeting like she was reading procedure, not hosting a family feud. The agenda language was tight and clinical. Engineering certification compliance, risk exposure. Those phrases hit harder than anything personal ever could. When it was my turn, I didn't perform. I stated facts. I explained what I reviewed, what I corrected, what I sealed with my license. I described what was removed from the public file and what later appeared under Tamsin's name where a valid license number should have been. I kept my voice steady and my sentences clean. Nolan Ketter leaned forward and asked, "Can you confirm the source of each document submitted?" "Yes," I said. FOIA responses logged through the county clerk. Original email headers with metadata intact, signed board minutes pulled from public record, and a flash drive provided by a county employee containing draft statements and internal communications. He nodded and asked about chain of custody, and I walked him through every step. Dates, file names, backup storage. I didn't leave gaps. Lenora finally spoke when she couldn't stand it anymore. She didn't look at me. She addressed the board. "This is disloyal," she said. "He is hurting the county's reputation over personal grievances. I have served this community for decades." She shifted to the old playbook fast. "He has always been jealous of his sister, and now he wants my position." That almost made me laugh, but I kept my face neutral. I had a stable job 2 counties over. I didn't want her desk. Verity didn't entertain any of it. She looked straight at Lenora and asked one question. "Did you direct staff to remove consultant attribution from official project files?" The pause that followed was long enough to hear someone in the back shift in their chair. Lenora opened her mouth, closed it, and said, "We streamlined communications to avoid confusion." That wasn't an answer. Then Harlan took the microphone. He didn't bring notes. He didn't need them. "I raised structural concerns during the revision phase," he said. "I was told not to escalate. Those revisions improved the structure. That is fact. On transcript, that mattered more than emotion ever could." Tamsin sat beside her own attorney, eyes red, hands clasped tight. When Nolan asked her directly why she signed the certification line, she swallowed hard and said, "I did what my mother told me." The room didn't gasp. It didn't need to. You could feel people deciding she wasn't built for what came next. Back in Ridgelow, my firm started to worry about getting dragged into a public mess. I heard whispers about liability and optics. Colette shut it down in a staff meeting. "We do not punish engineers for telling the truth," she said. "If our documentation is clean, we stand behind it." By the end of that week, Verity issued a formal letter. A full audit of the past 9 years of filings under public works supervision, plus a referral packet to the state licensing board for review of certification irregularities. The letter went into the public record, and once it was there, nobody could edit it. Once Verity filed the audit request and the referral packet hit the licensing board, it stopped being a local headache. The state board moved slow, but they moved. And when they opened an official file, the whole just a family misunderstanding narrative finally died. Lenora wasn't arrested. There weren't any handcuffs. That's not how it usually ends. But what she lost hurt her more than a booking photo ever could. She lost the story. She lost the clean ending she'd written for herself 10 years early. The county announced an external compliance review for all public works projects from the last decade. Quietly, without explanation, Lenora's honorary retirement resolution vanished from the next board meeting packet. No plaque, no send-off. Just her badge turned in and a new nameplate on the office door. Tamsin filed for administrative leave the same week the audit started. A few days later, she resigned. The letter was full of language like growth and new direction, but anyone who'd seen the hearing footage knew it wasn't ambition. It was fallout. Gideon called me late one night, same tight voice, same old rhythm. "Just apologize," he said. "She can't retire like this. It's humiliating." I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just said, "Dignity doesn't come from erasing people, Dad." She did that on her own. He didn't have a reply for that, so he said nothing and hung up. Marlies didn't stop helping. She sat for a formal statement and handed over another round of internal drafts, reply chains, and calendar edits that painted it all clear. Lenora wasn't fixing clerical issues. She was rewriting official records like they were scrapbook captions. Verity didn't soften the landing. Her final report listed improper attribution, multiple process violations, and documented attempts at unlicensed sign-off under Lenora's direction. There was no ambiguity, no room left to reinterpret. After the dust settled, Colette's firm landed a county-wide retainer for infrastructure oversight. She sent me the announcement with one line beneath it. "Verity wants you as lead on the corrective review." Her words were, "He keeps clean files." I didn't say no. A week into the new contract, I took a longer route into the county office, past the spur overpass, and saw two workers bolting a new plaque panel onto the east side. It didn't have Lenora's name. It didn't have mine either. No hero talk. No headline quote. Just the project facts and the responsible parties, listed with license numbers and roles. Exactly how it should have been in the first place. I'm older now, and I've learned the cleanest revenge isn't screaming. It's putting the truth somewhere. It can't be shoved into a drawer. Once it's on record, no one needs to believe you. They just need to read. The overpass never collapsed. I'm grateful for that. But it got flagged, restricted, reviewed, and corrected. And that's the part people always forget. Accountability isn't for when things fail. It's for making sure they don't. Lenora retired without the exit parade she thought she deserved. No resolution, no newsletter profile. Around Renford, people stopped calling her a legend. Some didn't talk about her at all. Others talked too much, and none of it sounded like the version she spent decades rehearsing. You can't spin a transcript. Gideon still lives in the same house, drives the same county-issued pickup, keeps his head down like he's just waiting for all the conversations to blow over. Every year, I get a birthday text. No punctuation, never a call. Just a line or two, polite and cautious, like he's afraid a full sentence might reopen something. Tamsin drifted 2 counties east. Private contractor role, last I heard. She's not doing sign-offs anymore. Someone said she's taking night classes. Maybe trying to build something real this time, without borrowing a license or her mother's name. I don't wish her harm, but I don't trust her either. Colette made partner track official for me right after the retainer landed. She walked into my office, dropped the folder on my desk, and said, "You earned it. Don't act surprised." I wasn't surprised. I was steady. For the first time, I felt like my name matched the work it was on. Marlis left Public Works not long after the audit started. She called me once just to say thanks. Her voice was lighter. "I sleep better now," she said, after I stopped protecting her, and I told her the truth. Me too. Lenora never called. She sent a letter, 2 pages, front and back. Neat handwriting, formal like it was typed with a pen. She admitted she handled things wrong, not quite an apology. Just enough distance to keep her pride intact. I didn't write back right away, not because I was angry, because I was done being edited. Some people only understand boundaries when you build one they can't step over. Sometimes, early in the morning, I take the long route to work. Cross the Renford Spur overpass just to remind myself. No fanfare, no headlines. Cars roll over it like it's nothing. That's the point. My name doesn't have to be spoken for my work to hold. One last thing I've got to ask you. When someone keeps erasing your work or your voice, do you fight for the record or keep the peace and swallow it? If you've got the hype feature, tap it to support this video and help it reach more people, then please subscribe and like. It's one click and it really matters. and drop a comment like, good story, or tell me what you would have done.